Do you know the 3 most common mistakes that first-time game creators make? I was talking about this with Jordan Blackman the other day. He's a longtime game producer who's worked at Zynga and Ubisoft, and he now oversees the games for The Ellen Show. I'm Amy Jo Kim, co-founder of the Game Thinking Academy. If you want to save yourself months of time and a lot of heartache, check out Jordan's take on the common first-timer mistakes. And be sure to watch to the end to hear a surprising story about the key ingredient that every successful game needs. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see first-time game designers and game developers make?
I'll do a few, but I'd love to hear a couple from you too, because I know you've seen your fair share. One thing is the idea of just adding more and more features. Like, this is a good idea because it has multiplayer and it has single player and it has asynchronous and it has synchronous, and you can use it as a social network. And, you know, this kind of like feature stuffing. I see a lot with new entrepreneurs who I think are lacking confidence in their core concept or don't necessarily have a clear core concept. Another one is not having a clear understanding of how much work it's going to be to produce quality product, right? Like thinking you can get something done in a year that is probably going to take 3 or 4, given the ridiculous scope some new founders have. One we talked about when you were on my podcast was, you know, this whole thing about looking at something that's already like hyper popular and then making a slightly different or slightly improved version. You know, that's how it worked in box product, right? Like, oh, military shooters are popular, so when people finish that military shooter, they're going to want to play the next one and we can provide it. But in the world of live operations and games as service, they don't finish ever. So your game that's so similar is just not going to get played. It's going to be ignored.
And that takes us back to the issue about the community. And it has to do with the network effects of the community, knowing other people that play. Is it worth it to switch to something slightly different than Fortnite when all your friends play Fortnite?
And the developer has no data about what those players actually like, and probably doesn't have, you know, the same experienced dev team, and they just have all these handicaps to actually competing with Fortnite, and so they're almost certainly going to lose. Now, if you have the finances and you have the team and you have the ammo and you see the opportunity and you want to take over something, like, you can do it, right? Like Blizzard made World of Warcraft after seeing what was it?
EverQuest and UO before that.
Yeah, so you know, they were able to kind of take over that category, and so it's not impossible, but it's really hard. And if you're a startup and you're trying to, you know, work with limited budget, you're almost certainly going to get smashed.
This is a question I ask really smart people I know in the games industry, and they often have similar answers. I talked to Mike Sellers about this, who's a legendary MMO designer. Now he teaches the master's program of game design at Indiana University. I asked him what were the common mistakes, people coming into his programs. Almost identical to what you said. It's featureitis, which is often a cover up for I don't have a really good core loop.
Totally.
And then there's lack of scoping. I think some of that is in the way school's taught. Some of it is in the way things get funded. And then the third one, thinking that your brilliant ideas about a few feature tweaks are what's going to make this next great hit. So how can you avoid making these mistakes? Well, even if you're a beginner, you can use a technique that every top game dev uses, which is to create a prototype and test it on real players as early as possible. One of the techniques that we've developed that'll tell you if something's worth pursuing is to see if you can find an audience for your idea. If it's a good idea, usually you can. If you try and you can't, your idea might be incoherent or unrealistic, or there might be a really good reason people aren't looking for it.
There's this copywriter, Gary Halbert. He has this famous story where he asked his class, like, if you and I were both owning a hamburger stand and we were going to have a contest to see who could sell the most hamburgers, what advantage would you want to have to make sure that you would win? And, you know, the students said that they want to have better meat to make their burgers, or they want to have like sesame seeds on their buns, or they want to have the best location, or they want to have the lowest prices. You know, said, hey, I'll give you all of that, but here's what I'm going to have: a starving crowd. And I think that goes to your point that if you can't find that starving crowd for your concept, for what you have to sell, then you're going to have a really hard time. And if you can find it, you can have a business very quickly a lot of times. So I think that's a great point.
To hear more from Jordan, check out his podcast on the games industry, Playmakers. The link is in the description below. We'll be publishing more game design advice soon from Jordan and other experienced game devs. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. And if you want to find your hot core customers and learn how to develop prototypes as early as possible, join me in the Game Thinking Hub, our free community for game developers and product leaders who want to level up their skills. Go to gamethinking.io/hub to join us now. I'll see you there.